The whispers had always clung to Montauk like the relentless fog rolling in from the Atlantic, tales of shadows stretching longer than the lighthouse beam, of strange experiments hidden within the abandoned military base, Camp Hero. For decades, locals exchanged hushed stories about disappearances, about lights in the night sky that defied explanation, and an unnerving silence that sometimes fell over the remote Long Island Peninsula. These were not mere ghost stories. They carried the unsettling weight of something far more tangible, something profoundly unsettling that had taken root in the late 20th century and refused to be forgotten. Amidst these chilling legends, Dr. Evelyn Reed, a physicist whose brilliance was matched only by her ambition, found herself drawn into the very heart of the enigma. Evelyn possessed a mind that saw the universe not as a fixed entity, but as a tapestry woven with threads of possibility, waiting to be unraveled. This relentless drive wasn't purely academic. It was fueled by a profound, personal tragedy. The unexplained loss of a loved one years prior, an incident shrouded in perplexing circumstances that defied conventional physics, had forged in her an unyielding quest to understand the very fabric of reality, to find answers where none existed. She yearned to push boundaries, to peer into the hidden mechanics of existence, hoping perhaps to find a logic that could explain the inexplicable pain she carried. The invitation arrived subtly, an unmarked envelope delivered by a figure who vanished as quickly as they appeared. It spoke of a highly classified project, boundless resources, and an unparalleled opportunity for groundbreaking energy research, all under the auspices of a shadowy government agency. Evelyn, her scientific curiosity piqued and her desire for answers overriding any nascent caution, accepted. The journey to Montauk was an exercise in increasing isolation. The roads narrowed, the trees grew denser, and the air itself seemed to hum with an unspoken tension. By the time her vehicle rumbled through the imposing gates of Camp Hero, the sense of mystery had solidified into an almost palpable presence. The base was a fortress, heavily guarded, its weathered concrete structures exuding an atmosphere of extreme secrecy, a place where the ordinary ceased to exist. Inside, she was introduced to Dr. Alistair Finch, the project's lead. Finch was undeniably charismatic, his words smooth, his vision grand, yet Evelyn detected an unsettling undertone, a glint in his eye that hinted at something morally ambiguous beneath the polished exterior. Initially, Evelyn immersed herself in her assigned tasks, developing advanced electromagnetic field generation, believing wholeheartedly that her work contributed to national defense. However, as weeks turned into months, unsettling anomalies began to surface in her data. Faint temporal distortions flickered across her monitors, echoes of unknown events appearing and vanishing with alarming regularity. She observed strange protocols, witnessed the handling of highly classified documents to which she had no access, and overheard fragmented conversations that made little sense. Her suspicions grew, a cold knot forming in her stomach. One quiet night, while cross-referencing an obscure energy signature, Evelyn intercepted a fragmented, garbled audio recording. It was barely decipherable, riddled with static and distortion, yet certain words cut through the noise with chilling clarity. Temporal displacement, unforeseen consequences, collapsing. The voice was frantic, desperate, and then it was gone, leaving only the hum of her equipment and the terrifying implication of what she had just heard. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The cryptic recording, a phantom whisper of impending disaster, gnawed at Evelyn. The hum of her equipment, once a comforting lullaby of scientific pursuit, now felt like a prelude to something far more sinister. She couldn't ignore it, couldn't dismiss the growing unease that had settled deep within her. The following morning, with the fragmented audio loop playing silently in her mind, Evelyn confronted Finch. His office, usually a bastion of controlled chaos, felt charged with an unspoken tension as she laid out her findings, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She presented the anomalous data, the temporal distortions, and finally, the chilling snippets from the intercepted recording. Finch listened, his charismatic facade slowly cracking, replaced by a flicker of something akin to resignation or perhaps a calculated unveiling. He paced, his gaze sweeping over the complex schematics adorning his walls, before finally turning back to Evelyn, his eyes holding a new, unsettling intensity. "Dr. Reed," he began, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "you are too brilliant to be kept in the dark any longer. The energy research is a cover. The true purpose of the Montauk Project, it is experimental time travel and mind control." The words hung heavy in the air, a cold, undeniable truth that simultaneously horrified and electrified Evelyn. Finch then launched into a fervent justification, appealing to her patriotism, to the imperative of national security, and most potently, to her insatiable scientific ambition. He painted a picture of a world on the brink, where such radical advancements were not merely desirable, but absolutely necessary for survival, for dominance. The full weight of his revelation, however, only truly hit Evelyn when Finch led her deeper into the labyrinthine facility, past reinforced doors and heavily armed guards, to a section she had never seen before. There, in sterile, dimly lit rooms, were the test subjects. They were young, some barely adults, their eyes vacant, movements jerky, bodies etched with the clear signs of profound psychological trauma. These were the vulnerable, the forgotten, plucked from the fringes of society, now exhibiting disorienting temporal disorientation, their minds fractured by journeys they could not comprehend. Finch pointed to a grim metallic chair, bristling with electrodes and intricate wiring. "The chair," he explained, "for psychic amplification and consciousness manipulation. A gateway, Dr. Reed, to the very fabric of time itself." Among them, one individual stood out. "Subject Delta," Finch identified, a faint note of triumph in his voice. Delta was a young man, gaunt and withdrawn, but with an undeniable aura of raw, untamed power. He possessed advanced temporal abilities, yet his suffering was palpable, a silent scream etched onto his face. As Evelyn observed him, a strange, almost maternal instinct stirred within her. She felt an inexplicable connection, a profound empathy for this broken soul, fueling her growing moral revulsion against Finch and his horrific experiments. Evelyn's internal conflict raged. The allure of revolutionary discovery, the chance to finally unravel the mysteries of time, warred with a burgeoning sense of disgust. She began to see Finch not as a visionary, but as a man consumed by a dangerous personal ambition, his patriotism a thin veneer over a hunger for power. She confided her growing doubts in a colleague, a seemingly sympathetic physicist named Dr. Aris Thorne, hoping to find an ally. But Thorne, it turned out, was a snake. Within days, Evelyn noticed the subtle shift in the guards' attitudes, the increased scrutiny, the quiet whispers that followed her. Thorne had reported her. Her freedom, once taken for granted, now felt like a privilege under constant surveillance. Under duress, her options dwindling, Evelyn was forced to participate in a human time travel experiment. Subject Delta, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and resignation, was strapped into the chair. The air crackled with energy, the machinery whirred to a deafening crescendo, and then a blinding flash. The experiment was a partial success. Delta briefly glimpsed another time, a fleeting window into a distant past or future. But he returned severely damaged, his mind even more fragmented, his body trembling uncontrollably. Yet the event had a profound consequence. Subtle, disturbing changes began to manifest in the reality around Montauk. Objects shifted, memories blurred, and the very air seemed to vibrate with an unnatural resonance. One evening, alone in her lab, Evelyn found a small, intricately folded piece of paper tucked into her personal notes. It was not her handwriting. On it, scrawled in a frantic, unfamiliar script, were 3 chilling words: temporal collapse. Stop. The message, seemingly from the future, was a desperate warning. The cryptic warning, a desperate plea from an unseen future, solidified Evelyn's resolve. The project wasn't merely dangerous, it was an existential threat, actively unraveling the very fabric of reality. Finch's ambition, once a source of intellectual fascination, now manifested as a terrifying, destructive force. She knew she was a target, her every move scrutinized, but the fate of countless timelines, perhaps even her own, depended on her. There was no turning back. Her search for an ally led her to a quiet, unassuming corner of the facility, among the labyrinthine conduits and humming servers. There, she found the sympathetic technician, a man named Arthur, whose weary eyes held a similar disillusionment. Arthur, a veteran of countless clandestine operations, had seen too much, understood too little, and felt the creeping dread of Montauk's true purpose. Evelyn, choosing her words carefully, revealed the full scope of Finch's madness, the escalating temporal distortions, and the chilling message from the future. Arthur, initially hesitant, his loyalty ingrained by years of service, eventually relented. The image of the vacant-eyed test subjects, the subtle but undeniable shifts in reality, had already begun to erode his obedience. With his help, Evelyn gained access to Finch's personal research logs, a treasure trove of restricted data hidden deep within the facility's encrypted network. What Evelyn uncovered chilled her to the bone. Finch's ultimate goal was not merely to observe or control time, but to actively reshape it. He harbored a delusional conviction that he could rectify a past personal failure, a perceived injustice that had haunted him for decades, by manipulating a specific historical event. The logs detailed his meticulous plans for a final, massive temporal jump, a catastrophic intervention that would rewrite history, consequences be damned. He believed himself a god, capable of correcting the universe's imperfections. The confrontation was inevitable. Evelyn found Finch in the heart of the temporal chamber, a colossal, pulsating sphere of energy at its core, surrounded by an array of flickering screens displaying complex temporal algorithms. The air crackled with raw power, the hum of the machinery reaching a fever pitch. Finch, his eyes gleaming with a mad fanaticism, was preparing for his final audacious leap. "You cannot stop me, Dr. Reed," he declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I am on the precipice of true creation." Evelyn, armed with Arthur's knowledge and her own unparalleled understanding of the facility's systems, moved with desperate precision. She knew direct confrontation was futile. Instead, she began to subtly reroute power conduits, override safety protocols, and inject corrupted data streams into the temporal machinery. It was a desperate gamble, a high-stakes game of technological warfare against a man consumed by his own hubris. Finch, initially oblivious, began to notice the subtle fluctuations, the erratic readings on his monitors. His face contorted in rage as he realized Evelyn's sabotage. He lunged, but she evaded him, her focus unwavering on the control panel, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. The temporal sphere began to destabilize, its energy field flickering violently. The climax was a symphony of chaos. Alarms blared, sparks flew, and the very structure of the chamber groaned under the immense strain. Evelyn, risking her own life, pushed the system past its breaking point, overloading the temporal machinery. A blinding flash engulfed the chamber, followed by a deafening roar that shook the entire facility. When the light subsided, the temporal sphere was a twisted wreckage of melted metal and shattered glass. Finch, thrown clear by the explosion, lay unconscious amidst the debris, his grand delusion shattered. The Montauk Project in its destructive form was finally halted. Evelyn emerged from the wreckage, bruised but alive, the weight of her actions a heavy burden. The facility was severely damaged, a testament to the cataclysm she had averted. The project was dismantled, its secrets buried once more. Its horrifying experiments ceased. Finch's plans were thwarted, but the long-term effects on time and reality remained an unsettling ambiguity. Evelyn, her name now a whispered legend among the few who knew the truth, vanished, leaving Montauk behind. Years later, she lived a quiet life, far from the shadows of Camp Hero, a physics professor at a small, unassuming university. She taught, She researched. She tried to forget. Yet sometimes a subtle, unexplained anomaly would surface. A fleeting image in a reflective surface that wasn't quite right. A misplaced object that reappeared in an impossible location. A strange dream of fractured realities. The Montauk Project's echoes still resonated, a constant, chilling reminder that the timeline, once tampered with, might never be fully healed.